our brains have evolved in a specific. People underestimate it, how these small changes in the environment, how much they influence our behavior.
I think being overwhelmed by choice is one of the many problems that consumers face these days, and people have fear of better options, or they just have. So we have this little slogan that we say, people love to have a choice, but they hate making a choice.
Why is it? Because we're really well tuned to all these things. We have been.
はい、ピボットの竹下です。今日のピボットグローバルはこの勘違いが人を動かすという行動経済学の本を書いたオランダから来てくれたんですが、エヴァさんとティムさんに話を聞きます。エヴァさんは行動経済学者で、ティムさんは行動経済学に詳しい広告業界の方です。もうかなりビジネスに使えるヒントがたくさんありまして、例えばですね、スケジュール帳、皆さんも書くと思うんですけど、スケジュール帳は色をですね、2色でなくて1色で書くべきだと書いてるんですよね。その方が時間と時間の区切りがはっきりとして、目標を達成しやすくなる。みたいに、行動経済学を使って、どう自分を変えたりとか、お客さんにある行動をしてもらうっていうことを、いろんなヒントが詰まった本です。と同時にですね、その行動経済学ばっかり企業が使うようになってしまうと、消費者を騙すじゃないですけど、ちょっとずるいこともできちゃうので、そういった行動経済学の限界点についても、お二人日本に今来てくれてますので、聞いてみたいと思います。では早速、ティムさんとエヴァさんをお呼びしましょう。So Eva and Tim, welcome to PIVOT.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So Eva, you are a behavior economist, and Tim, you are a linguist, copywriter, and you also found your own company, and you are in the ad business.
Yes.
So today we're going to talk about behavior economics. You have your new book. Congratulations on your new Japanese edition.
Thank you so much.
And so most of our audience are business business field. So we're going to talk about the behavior economics and how we can implement it into the business field. First of all, is this your first time in Japan?
For me, it is.
It is. How about you?
My second visit.
Second time.
Yes.
What's the impression of Japan? From a behavior economist viewpoint.
So of Tokyo specifically,
Yes.
The enormous amounts of people that we meet on the streets, that we run into, just the density of people and the amount of social norms that is around that sort of, that I feel they are there, but I don't exactly know what they are. So in terms of social norms, I'm flabbergasted.
So there are a lot of hidden rules.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm sure I'll learn, but that takes time.
Is it very different from maybe the trains or the cities in Netherlands?
Yes, it's much better organized here.
Better organized.
Yeah, in Amsterdam, it's a mess, I'd say. Yes, and here it's very orderly. Here it's clearly, people are used to so many more people on a very small area. Yeah.
How about this pink studio? Do you have that in Netherlands?
I haven't seen anything like it.
Okay. How about you, Tim? How's your impression of Japan?
Well, first of all, I love it here. I think it's a wonderful country, and especially Tokyo is a wonderful city. From a professional viewpoint, what I really enjoy is the very advanced outdoor advertising. I think in the Netherlands and most of Europe, we've been very much obsessed with targeting online. From the idea that if you reach someone who is not in the market for your product, then it would be waste.
I see.
But there's also a school of thought in advertising that says the waste is the part that works. It's very good to show your message to a lot of people because advertising is a social phenomenon. It's very important if I, for instance, would give you a phone, that you would know the brand also and that other people would know I'm giving you a great gift because it's a great brand.
Right.
So I'm really taking that home with me to tell people in the Netherlands that we really should focus on this social side of advertising.
What do you mean by social? Do you see ads in like trains or in taxi or in the streets, in the buildings?
Yes, exactly.
You don't have that in...
The amount of noise that comes with ads is for me also very new. Yeah, and noise is of course something you can't put away. You can look away from an ad, but the noise is still there. Yeah.
Don't you think it's too noisy because Netherlands, it's very clean, very...
Oh no, we
no?
love it.
Okay.
We love it.
You love it, okay.
Yes, we become very quiet when it's noisy around us and just enjoy it all.
Okay,
like watching
no ads here, okay.
Yeah.
So in your book, you have a Japanese preface and you make a lot of relevance for the Japanese audience, readers. And I heard you like Morioka bookstore in Ginza.
Yes. Well, I think being overwhelmed by choice is one of the many problems that consumers face these days. And people have fear of better options or they just have choice anxiety. so we have this little slogan that we say, people love to have a choice, but they hate making a choice. And I think it's really clever that the store shows, or Mr. Morioka shows that you can actually just offer one product and be successful, not just as a little stunt, but actually have a company that just sells one product at a time, help people out, make a decision for them, make life easier for them. And I visited the store, and it was very nice to see it for real after writing about it on the other side of the world.
So they only have one title, one book per week or per month or something.
It's carefully curated. And then the next week they sell one title again. So that's, and it's a viable business model. That's the interesting part about it. Yes.
I would love to see fast fashion move in that direction.
Only one T-shirt, only one jacket. That's great. So before going deep into this book, I will have this question I want to ask both of you. So behavioral economics is very popular in Japan, but at the same time, like Eva said, there's kind of social norms that are very different from the international community. Do you think there's a Japanese version of behavioral economics, or is it a universal thing?
So of course our brains all very much look alike, right? So I don't think there's a specific variety or a special kind of behavioral economics. It's all about how our brains interact with the environment. But the environment here is very different, indeed. I know of a couple of studies that are specifically, that's more like social psychology than behavioral economics. They're really targeted to detecting these social norms. So things like, which pen would you choose from two colors? Say there's 19 blue pens and one red one. Then a Dutch person would, what would you take? Probably the single one, the red one. Whereas a Japanese person would rather leave that option for people after them and choose a blue one. And so there are these kind of things that are specifically influenced by social norms. On the other hand, I think if we would stay a couple of weeks longer, we'd do much better in terms of social norms here. It's easy to learn, right?
Yeah. How about you, Tim?
Yes, I think as Eva says, behavior is always the product of your personality and the environment. So I think people will often do what they think the social norm is. And if the social norm is a little bit different, they will behave a little bit differently, but the principle is the same. They're still looking for the social norm. I think one thing that's interesting is the fudge factor. So when you encounter a social norm, there's also a second norm that tells you how much you may deviate from that norm. And I think in the Netherlands, we have a very large fudge factor. So it's not okay to behave in a certain way, but we also know that we can get away with it. And I think maybe in Japan, there's a smaller fudge factor when something is a norm. It's not okay.
Interesting.
Yes.
Do you agree?
I do from this first week. I don't know what the literature says there. Yes, definitely. Less wiggle room.
Is it like system 1, system 2, like you mentioned in the book? There's different version of behavior in maybe the Japanese minds? Or?
No, I think it differs per, per area of the social domain or so. Maybe on the streets, the behavior that we encounter now the most often, it is very tight, like where to walk, not to eat on metro lines, these kind of things. I think in other areas it's very, very different.
Okay, interesting. Yes. So let's go deep dive into the book, and I would like you to give some examples, and if I notice something different for a Japanese context, I'll interrupt you and start the discussion. So I noticed there's a kind of fly stopping on the title. I thought this was like an ink mess, but it's not, it's a fly. And you mentioned about the concept of the housefly effect. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, well, it was inspired by something that I haven't seen yet in Japan, which is a little housefly that's painted in urinals.
We have that in our bathroom. It's a blue circle.
Yes.
Oh, a blue circle,
And
like a red eye or something, a bullseye,
Yes. And it's a little bit of a dirty example, but we liked it because it's very famous because, it solves the problem that men need to aim well to keep the floor clean.
Yes.
And if you ask men why that is, they can't really tell you. So it's that, like you said, that system 1 reaction, it just happens. Behavior just happens to us. But then we were also thinking about the butterfly effect, how a very small thing can have a very large impact. So basically the housefly effect is our version of the butterfly effect. And luckily it's a little bit more predictable.
Yeah, but still it has the same, people underestimate it, how these small changes in the environment, how much they influence our behavior. These tiny, invisible little thingies.
Yes. So why is that? Because, historically speaking, people are convinced by logic and emotions. But in your book, you are arguing that even that's a small thing, like a housefly effect, it matters a lot. Why is that?
Yeah, why is it?
Yes.
Because we're really well tuned to all these things. We have been, our brains have evolved in a specific context, and they're things like the order of certain things passing by, or things like cues that others are giving about what is allowed and what is not. They have been very, very important, of course. So we're just very well tuned to these kind of things, to environmental things that are not very well deliberated, conscious thoughts.
So then the strange thing is we all recognize that we are very much susceptible to these effects. But then in a business context, we tend to forget them and say, well, we just need to give logical arguments why our product is the best, and then people will buy it. And if they don't want to buy it, we'll explain it again, rather than using all these little effects. So in a business context, we all try to be very rational and also try to treat consumers as if they're very rational. Well, we know they're not, but we still have to figure out how to deal with it.
Why are we treating the consumers very national? Even though there's tons of studies that say we are not.
Well, I think for irrational reasons. Because we feel a little bit more professional and rational ourselves when we approach it like that.
And there's a specific effect that when you're explaining why something is a great idea to someone else, that you start to believe in it even more yourself. So there's this explaining effect, and we have that as business people, right? I have that too. I feel like I should explain why the book is useful or so, but no, actually you want the customer to explain it to you why it's so useful.
And also companies are run by people who have more rational type jobs.
Yes.
Because the creative will still have to show his work to the accountant, but the accountant doesn't have to show his work to the creative to get it approved. Would be an interesting world if he had to, but yes.
That is a good point. So from a business perspective, are there any studies you found from a behavioral economics point that, how it plays a role in business settings? Any other examples other than the housefly effect in business settings?
Yeah, tons of examples, of course. Hard to choose one. So what I hear from business leaders is that they're often during meetings, so especially in a social, professional context, that present bias is a very big thing. So the idea that we're very much focused on what's at the table right now instead of thinking about future strategic plans. And there are, of course, ways to sort of mitigate that. It's the same as if you don't want to be influenced by marketing tricks while you're running your groceries, just doing shopping. Well, what you do is you make a list of what you should be doing. And it sounds very obvious, but I think many management meetings would benefit from allocating a specific amount of time to long-term risks and strategy. So say the final 50 minutes or the first 50 minutes of a meeting should be about things that will happen only in a couple of years. So really allocate time and moments for that would be one of the ways to mitigate that. But then there's also things like in the hiring process of people, we know there's lots of biases at play where we tend to choose people that look like us. And even professional HR people do so. We know that. They know that. But it's very hard to just by motivation get across that intention action gap. So in order to get a more equal employee setup, you really have to think about what institutions are in place. So for instance, it doesn't help much to give people a training on how biased they are in choosing new employees.
I see.
Because that will only reinforce the bias that we have, because then we hear, oh, the boss also thinks women should do this and men should do that, or So what rather helps is just really looking at the data, at the HR analytics, and checking where the gaps are. So check at what stage, is it at the hiring stage, is it at the promotional stage, at the payment gaps, whatever. Where are the gaps that we would need to counterbalance by, for instance, leaving vacancies open for a longer time. Because we know from literature that women take a bit longer to start applying to a new job, for instance. So these kinds of very small things would help to counteract biases in the hiring process.
Right. I want to ask about the HR because we have a huge gender gap in Japan. But
yes,
before that, for our audience, could you explain a little more about the present effect? Because is it similar to when we go to a supermarket and we see a cash register and there are all sweets, we pick that sweets up? Is that the same
That's a beautiful example.
Okay.
I'm so tempted here in Japan.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you go to any convenience stores in Japan?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So you know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Very much so. Yeah, you don't want to see my luggage.
Okay. So could you explain to the audience what the present effect and how it's affecting our lives?
Yeah, it's so there's lots of present effects, all different kinds and tastes. But the major thing is that we tend to overweigh the amount of utility, economic speak, the amount of pleasure we get from things that are now in our view, basically. So it's hard to, if you need to choose between, say, 100 yen now or 102 yen in a couple of hours, we rather go for now a bit less. Whereas if you would ask the same question to me now for myself in a week, we would think, well, it's only 1 hour difference, give me the higher amount. So we really, if we're asked to make a decision on the spot and weigh two offers or two options, then we always go for the one that gives us the most pleasure right now. And that is what causes all these present biases. And we underestimate that, actually.
So if I were asked if I would have $100 today or $120 like in a week or a month, I choose the 100 because I can get it 100 now.
Exactly. If you would ask that now, you would choose the fast option.
So my question is, why is that? And can we overcome that our human behavior if we learn behavioral economics?
So that is really what the book is about. Right?
Okay. Yes.
It's very tough because what we argue is that motivation alone is not enough. Our free will or our willpower is really hardly enough to go against all the seductions in a convenience store.
Right.
So it's just too many. And also, of course, the businesses that put the sweets at the counter know much better that our willpower is not that high. We overestimate it, they don't.
Right.
At the same time, once you accept that fact, you can, for instance, the best way to not drink alcohol is not to go to a bar. Not to go to...
That's a good advice.
Avoid,
So you can avoid it. And if you know that your business decisions are very much influenced by watching a dashboard, and that makes you very much focused on the short term, and you're just trying to get online engagement when you know that long time is more important. Just don't look at the dashboard. And if you don't want to buy impulse buys at the grocery store, don't go to the grocery store every day, but make a list and go there once a week. So once we accept the fact that we are very susceptible to these housefly effects, we can change our own behavior to just make sure that we don't see them as often.
And there's also technological help for that, right? I installed on my computer all these things that keep me from distracting apps for a couple of business hours, because I know I'm going down the rabbit hole, right? So I know how to tie my hands at certain times, and I think that is our system that really knows how to keep ourselves in check, and that we should put in use for the long term, so that in the short term we aren't overcome by things that draw our attention.
So it's an excellent advice, but however, we are making thousands of decisions every day. Maybe you mentioned that in the book, maybe 300 decisions per day.
On food alone,
on food,
yes. I think it's ridiculous.
So even if we ignore the bar, we might enter a convenience store and buy some snacks. So how can you stay alert for 24 hours? every day?
Well, you can't, but you can buy. You can build your own little routines.
Routines.
Because we are creatures of habit. So if you build, for instance, the habit of going shopping for food once a week with a grocery list, and once that becomes your habit, your brain stops thinking about it, and it just goes on that automatic system one, and then you have sort of programmed your system one to do that for you. So you can build healthy habits. Yes.
And it's also in that, especially in that domain, but also in other domains. It's very important to sort of have goals that you can trace or track. So you don't want to say, I want to be healthy next year. You want to say, I'm going to go to the gym every Tuesday night and then with that friend of mine who's going to keep me to the promise. So make it very clear. Think about what might happen to you on the way. You might pass a bar with another friend, but no, you promise your friend to go to the gym together, so you have to go there. So you really have to make it manageable, I think.
And one thing to look out for is doing little things that make you feel good about yourself. So for instance, eating a little, I had this burger and fries meal, and there was a little bit of lettuce there.
Okay.
And my daughter said, "Why do they add a little bit of lettuce?" I said, "To make us feel better about the burgers."
Okay. And, so you're eating a healthy food. Okay.
Yes, and that's what happens when you start grocery shopping. You put some healthy items in your basket. After that, you can buy everything you want because you're healthy already. And that also goes for taking a little walk, or maybe even sometimes the advice is it's enough to take the stairs rather than the elevator. But if that makes you feel like you don't need to go to the gym anymore. So you have to watch out for the little things that make you feel like it's check in the box.
Okay.
I don't have to do anything
anymore. Is that why in your book you mentioned that the supermarket, they have all the organic, healthy foods?
Right at the start, yes.
Yeah. Could you elaborate?
Because then your brain is sort of calculating an average. How healthy are my groceries? So when you start out with something very healthy in your bag, then you can add all the candy you like, and it's still a healthy average. Yeah.
So you are from the ad, so you're the business person. So do you think that's a bad thing, or it's something that ad people are trying hard? So is it an evil thing to put the organic stuff in?
I don't know. I spoke to a couple of people from supermarkets who said, well, we just experimented with where to put it.
Yeah.
And when we put it there, people started buying more. So so it was they didn't have they invented this before behavioral economics became a subject. So a lot of it was and once they all do it, it's very hard to stop. I do think they should give you the option to enter at the cash register.
That's a good idea.
So you can just put the candy in your bag right away, get it over with.
Maybe that's a good idea.
No, but then you have like maybe 20 minutes to think about, do I really want this candy?
So you have time to
put
it out. We need an offload station at the end.
Offload station, that's a wonderful idea.
Oh, actually, I think we can sell it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to the HR issue, because in Japan, we have a huge gender gap. But however, I talked to a lot of HR people in Japan. They're saying that, well, we're just doing fair. We don't have prejudice. We're not misogynist. We're just acting on all, and it's just natural to have more men in the work field. But do you think there's a kind of a hidden rule, or from a point of a behavioral economics on that situation?
I think from a behavioral perspective, there's tipping points. So here I wonder whether we'll get there with changing selection procedures.
Do you think that business should be transparent of their tricks, especially the government, because
warning, you are being manipulated.
Yes. This is a behavioral economics trick or something.
The funny, tragic, scary, I don't know, thing is that even when you are transparent about it, it still works.
It still works, okay.